what have you learned about...
All the ladies who were just considering me went...
No, that's incorrect. That's incorrect.
You and
I'm
your
a bad
goddamn
skier
biceps.
and I'm bad at snowboarding. What have you learned about choosing a good partner and the limitations of that? Is love something which is outside of being hackable and optimized?
I think there are certainly X factors. I don't, as best I can tell, I would have figured it out by now if you could reverse engineer it perfectly and just flip a switch. But I do think over time, as you have long relationships, and I've been really fortunate to have a number of long relationships, I mean, multiple relationships in the sort of 3 to 6 year range with amazing people, you learn what seems to work for you and what seems to not work, which is not automatically a judgment of the other person. It's a judgment of yourself and having a realistic evaluation of your strengths and weaknesses and so on. So I've certainly found that, to me, a lot of things are important. Number one, this seems obvious, but it's not always obvious because we sometimes gravitate towards our own strengths. And so if someone is analytical, they look for someone who is highly analytical. And I think there are certain base requirements for a good partner. You want them to be good problem solvers. You want them to be resilient and so on. But I'm looking for a complement. I want someone with incredibly high EQ, which doesn't mean I have no EQ, and I've worked hard to develop it. But I want someone who has that as a superpower. I would say, like, my prefrontal cortex is a superpower for other things. And I do not want to date a long-haired version of myself. Just like, throw me off a skyscraper now. No, thank you. Right. And I also want someone, I've thought about this very carefully, and I've dated a bit in the last year, which is sort of the period of my dating so far. Respect isn't enough, because respect is something that people can demand in a sense. It's not respect, because I feel like that is given. It's admiration. If I go on 2 dates with someone, I want to be inclined to tell my friends about her and brag about some aspect of her. Aside from, like, she has the best ass I've ever seen, right? It has to be something more than that. Nothing against great asses. I mean, those are fantastic too, but I want to admire my partner. And if they're soft-spoken and we're at a group dinner, I want to say, she's not going to say this, so I'll say it for her. Boom. And feel really good about doing that. And there's a lot more to it. I have thought about this. I mean, I could give you my sort of list of criteria, but it's also fundamentally it's a feeling, which is why dating apps can be so incredibly time consuming, because what you could learn, somebody please make a dating app where the sole purpose is to get people on a 10-minute video call. That's it. That's it. The stated purpose is just 10-minute video call, and it's built intrinsically into the app. That's it. That's the only goal of the app, because
like virtual speed dating.
Within 2 minutes, you know if there is some type of
chemistry.
Vibe. You know if your spider sense is saying go or no go. And I would also say, as someone who, in a sense, took my hypersensitivity offline, because my senses are very sensitive. Like, I am a very, not in a reactive sense, easily offended sense, but in the context of my senses being very high fidelity, I took that offline for a lot of my life due to childhood problems and so on. But bringing those back online was important, not just for dating, but also for navigating the fame stuff. Because as you have more notoriety, people are going to seek you out who you need to be wary of. And that's not all the time. It's not half of the people, but you will have people with ulterior motives. And so you want to be very tuned in, not to what your analytical mind is producing, but to what your pre-language evolved other means of assessment are telling you, what your body's telling you.
This is what I'm kind of obsessed by at the moment, that feeling feelings and integrating emotions is, I know, it just seemed for a long time I had a desire, I guess I still do, to be seen as a legitimate thinker, like somebody who has intellectual horsepower and a capacity to be rational and do all the rest. And I, went hardcore down the rationality movement. And if only I can learn Shane Parrish's top 100 cognitive biases off by heart, then all of my problems, if I can recite Thinking Fast and Slow, all of my problems will be. Turns out that doesn't particularly work. And one of the reasons it doesn't particularly work is that no matter how much you try to sort of clamp down on what's coming up, the thing that is coming up is the issue, and papering over that crack over and over and over again results in you just playing emotional Groundhog Day and then having an increasingly complex cathedral of different architectures to try and
that was good.
To try and architect a structure to account for it.
Yeah.
And I told you before, sort of big into this feelings thing, or trying to at the moment. And finding not just being at the mercy of them, but not just totally being in cognitive horsepower mode and trying to integrate those together. And that's fundamentally what you're looking for with a partner as well. And there's something in a relationship where you go, well, objectively, all of the boxes have been ticked. Why can't I get my love, attachments, lust side to trigger as well? Like, look, all of the thing. I mean, if you look at the rating says you should be in a relationship with this person.
Yeah.
And you go, yeah, but ultimately the heart wants what the heart wants, and you don't really get to reverse engineer that. Yeah. And there can be an awful lot of shame and guilt. I've certainly felt this, an awful lot of shame and guilt around having desires, about being like, I want a thing.
Yeah.
Who am I to want that thing? Who are you? Who are you to make demands of this? Should you not subjugate your desires in order to serve something which is safer or more peaceful or more familiar or more comfortable or whatever? And ultimately, I think you are fighting a losing battle. Like, your emotions are going to just rip you away from that over time.
Yeah, if that X factor isn't there, it doesn't matter what you try to rack up in terms of spreadsheets. If it's not there, especially it has to be there in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the honeymoon period isn't good, like, guess what? The marriage isn't going to be good.
I'll also ask myself these days, because it's what I'm looking for, is, in 3 to 5 years, could this person be my best friend? Let's say 3 years. And there's a lot that goes into that. Right? There's a lot that goes into that. So these are things that I think about. I am clear on my desires and what I want. I'm very clear on that. I don't have
spreadsheet.
I don't have too much conflict, I would say, about that. Okay. I definitely have very specific things that I like. And that's important to be clear. I think where you get into trouble and where you end up being really unfair to people is if you are unclear on what you want.
Yep.
And if you are unclear on aspects of yourself that you, ironically, expect other people to understand, when you yourself don't have a grasp of the basics of you yourself, that's when you're unfair. But if you know what you like and you pursue what you want and what you feel that you need, all the more power to you. I think clarity is power. And, there's something I say for myself as much as anybody else, but, life rewards the specific ask and punishes the vague wish. Like, specificity. And you can leave the door open to serendipity for sure, but are you in an environment, are you in a life that provides sufficient serendipity such that you can leave something like this purely to chance? I don't live in that life. I suspect you do not live in that life. You have a lot going on. So you have to have
intentionalism.
You have to have some intention, and you have to, have to is too strong a word, but have enough surface area, and I'm borrowing this from someone else, but surface area for luck to stick. But I think with some conditions so that you don't get seduced by the things that have led you astray in the past. Right?
Niels,
there are certain archetypes that I'm very, very attracted to that I know are problematic.
Bad for me.
From a compatibility perspective. It's not necessarily super unhealthy, but I know that it's not going to be viable.
We've gone down this road before, unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
Niels Strauss absolutely broke my brain last year, where he said, unspoken expectations are premeditated resentments.
Yeah, Claire Hughes Johnson, who helped build Stripe from a few hundred employees to 6,000 plus. She did basically every job, COO included. She said to me recently, she underscored the importance of making the implicit explicit. I just think so much pain can be avoided So much can be achieved. Just make the implicit explicit.
Direct
Do
communication.
not expect anyone to be a mind reader. When in doubt, spell it out. Easier said than done. But I think really tried to live that.
So much of that is habituated, though, and the tone can be set, the rhythm can be set in a friendship. There will be friends that you have, family members that you have, where you have a different cadence of communication and openness and honesty and everything than other people. Okay, so you can do it with some people. It is possible for you to set the tone with particular people in that way. And again, this is something that needs to be very intentional, but it's kind of like a one-time large decision that really sets the tone that you then just continue to top up. But if you start off from a place of the implicit being kept implicit, then when that changes, oh, this feels a little bit alien to me. This isn't really what I expected in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that the first 2 months of dating somebody are unbelievably important for setting expectations.